few days ago, I shared in the community tab this story of the Brazil plane crash, and it's falling in line with many of the other stories that I have done, Michael Mosley, Southport, that sort of thing. So let's get into this.
We're following breaking news out of Brazil. A passenger plane carrying 62 people has crashed on its way to Sao Paulo. Brazil's president says it appears that everyone on board has died. NBC News senior correspondent Tom Costello covers aviation for us. Tom, I know it's early. What do we know so far?
There's 62 people on board. I don't think that there were any people on board. I know that's controversial to say, but it, to me, sounds like it was a drone. So the first thing they say is that this crashed in Brazil. So let's look up what Brazil means. So Brazil is a type of wood, and it comes from an Indian tree. Indian means middle, and the tree is in the middle, the vortex, the inner vortex of the torus field. Or brew, to boil, bubble, effervesce, burn. This also links to my first decode on the 2020 event, and this has to do with the leavening, to boil, to bubble, to brew, and that links to beer and the enzyme that starts the leavening process. So all of Brazil has to do with the leavening process, putting the pressure on us to rise. Let's continue.
This was an airline called VOPASS, V-O-E, pass.
VOPASS. Vo doesn't really come up here. Vo is connected to vow, promise, solemn promise, promise to God, to pray, to wish, small bay or a narrow creek. So it's also water. So it's a narrow creek. And pass means to run between. So VOPASS sounds like water running between, say, two mountains, for example. To go by, to cross over, to trans. So again, this is linking back to COVID. The decode I did in 2020, trans is to cross, to spread, to go on, move forward, experience, undergo, to go through an examination successfully, to pass something like pass a test. Mountain, defile, step, track, passage, it's a passage, and a crossing in a passage. Written permission to pass into or through a place, sense of ticket for a free ride or admission, the act of declining to make a bid, make a pass, make an advance, completion, accomplishment.
2283 is the flight number. As you mentioned, 58 passengers and a crew of 4. It was flying.
Okay, so it crashed in Venhedo, just outside Sao Paulo. Sao Paulo means St. Paul. Paul means small or humble. It also means pole, as in the inner vortex. The pole is connected to Southport. Brazil is in the south, the southern hemisphere. And Venhedo means vineyard. And vineyard is the solar plexus.
From Cascavel to Sao Paulo, it went down just short of its destination in Sao Paulo into a residential area. As you can see there, we're told nobody on the ground was injured, but the president of Brazil says it appears that there were no survivors. This is an ATR-72, a turboprop plane. It is made in a kind of a coordination between Italian and French makers, and really has a pretty good reputation worldwide. We believe that this particular plane was built back in 2010. The video, which we are efforting to clear, Kate, but it really is astonishing. But it appears to show this.
It seems odd to me, these discs on the roof. They just remind me of the disc of the stars, the zodiac. So there's 3 of them, which is odd.
Plane literally coming out of the sky and falling like a flat pancake. In other words, not nose diving in, not going tail first, literally falling flat and in a very slow spin. The question is why that would have happened. Take a look there. The cockpit, the nose of the plane appears to be intact. It fell flat. The question is why. According to the flight radar data, it lost about 200 miles per hour in a matter of seconds. Went from 245, 250 miles per hour down to 0 and just fell like a rock. This is highly, highly unusual. It appears that the plane had its wings intact, at least looking at the video as it's still on the air. The engines appear to be intact. The tails.
So the plane essentially just free fell. It fell out of the sky. I seem to recall somewhere somebody saying something about planes falling out of the sky. I don't know whether, maybe it was me. Maybe I said it. I think maybe I said this back in 2017 or something. And I said something like, I think that I'll believe this place is really weird once I start seeing planes literally falling out of the sky. Okay, well, here it is. But this plane went from Cascavel. Cascavel is rattlesnake, serpent. So rattlesnake is a serpent. The serpent is the Kundalini. So it came from Cascavel and it crashed in the vineyard in the solar plexus just outside of Sao Paulo, which is St. Paul or the pole. So it did not make the Kundalini connection.
Intact. So something catastrophic happened while this plane was flying.
So what you're seeing here is video of the plane during the descent. You can see it sort of spiraling and spinning in the air there before there's a plume of smoke in some of these videos. Here's another look at it. Here's what we know at this hour. The aircraft went down in a residential area in the city of Venado. The airline says of the 62 people, 58 are passengers, 4 are crew members. Still not clear what caused the plane to crash or whether anyone survived. Here's what we know about the flight. It took off from Cascavel Airport in the southwestern part of the country. It's a regional airport. It was headed for the Sao Paulo Guarulhos Airport, which is the...
Let's look up this word, Guarulhos. It means eaters, big-bellied people. So once again, we're referring to the solar plexus area, the belly. So you get the vineyard and the belly.
It's a regional airport. It was headed for the Sao Paulo Guarulhos Airport, which is the busiest airport in the country and not far from Venado. Here's more video into the newsroom showing what looks to be a fire truck and an ambulance, some emergency responders here in Venado.
So they keep showing this footage where the ambulance with the 2 crosses on the eyes here is going through the gate, and there's a triangle, which is kind of like a pyramid. So you're getting through the gate, the portal. That's all I can see right now.
Ambulance, some emergency responders here in Venado. At an event today, the Brazilian president asked the crowd to observe a moment of silence, saying that it appeared all passengers and crew aboard had died. I want to go to CBS News aviation safety analyst and former NTSB chair Robert Sumwalt here with us now. Robert, you've seen some of the videos that we've been showing as well. What do you make of them? What can you deduce from them?
Certainly what this looks like is the airplane had an aerodynamic stall. And what that means is simply the airflow across the wings was no longer sufficient to keep the airplane flying.
There was not enough air under the wings to keep it up, so it just fell. What I can see in this in terms of symbolism is the plane is like a bird and air is Aquarius. So if you aren't into the age of Aquarius, you will fall. You're not going to ascend.
And after the stall, it goes into what we would call an aerodynamic spin.
So because he mentioned a stall followed by a spin, I thought I'd look them up. And the stall is to distract a victim. It is to be evasive, play for time, come to a stand, be stuck. So another one of my synchronicities, which was also street theater, I was stalled for time at the gate, and this plane was stalled on the other side of the gate. So it fell on the other side of that gate that the ambulance was trying to get through. And spin is a rapid revolving motion, an act or spell of whirling around, fairly rapid ride. An act of playing a phonograph record, influence imparted by a media source, as in bias. This also reminds me of this breakdancing fiasco in the Olympics. The Australian female performer did abysmally, and her name is Ray Gun. So Ray Gun sounds like a laser gun. One of her moves was like the sprinkler, which reminds me of like the arm and the needle on a record. So as the record is spinning, the arm and the needle drops on the record and plays the record. And they're on a circular platform breakdancing. And the other person who won for the men was Canada's Phil Kim, who goes by the name Wizard. So the wizard is Mercury. All right, I also want to point out that several times in the Olympics I have seen this red versus blue competition. The boxing competition was red versus blue, and here we have red versus blue, and the red won. I wonder if this is a pattern, if the red winning is a pattern, and it's foreshadowing the outcome of the American political election. See, the women's boxing, which was also highly controversial, the Algerian Iman, she won the women's Olympic boxing gold and is in red. So this is appearing to be a pattern.
So essentially, excuse the language, but essentially it's just falling out of the sky?
Well, really, that's the truth. The airplane no longer has sufficient airflow, and so the airplane is no longer aerodynamically flying.
This was a twin turbo prop plane. What can you tell us?
So it was a twin turbo, which is the TNT prop plane, PP. It had two engines, twin Thomas, twin pillars. The TNT is the cross in the middle of the two Tauruses and the two planes coming together. And as I have the two posters behind me from Under the Silver Lake and Don't Worry Darling has a plane entering from above, and Under the Silver Lake has a woman coming into the surface from above. So it's the same thing. The world's colliding. I just found this picture, if you want to call it a picture. And it says, cancer doctors and family with dog among Brazil plane crash dead. I've had synchronicity with dead dog lately, and I'm not sure what that means. But remember from Under the Silver Lake, it was beware the dog killer. But dog could be the female, killing the female, killing the feminine. And I don't know what this is. Some kind of bug. Interesting. This is from the BBC website. And it says, according to tracking website Flight Radar 24, the plane left Cascavel at 11:56 local time, which is 11:11. And the last signal received from the aircraft was about an hour and a half later. So lost signal. They didn't signal that they were in distress. So I've also had synchronicities about a lost signal or weak signal or radio interference, that sort of thing. Antenna. This is from CNN World News. It says what we know so far about the plane crash that killed 61 people in Brazil. Some reports say 61, some say 62. Perhaps they're including the dog, who knows. This report has the time, which is important. The timeline. The aircraft took off shortly before noon local time. Flight tracking data shows the plane had been cruising at 17,000 feet until 1:21 p.m. local time when it dropped approximately 250 feet in 10 seconds. 1:21 is the 1.21 gigawatts or gigawatts as said in Back to the Future. You have to harness that much power at the 88 gate in order to go back in time, which is why they need to harness the lightning. It then climbed approximately 400 feet in about 8 seconds, and 8 seconds later, it lost just under 2,000 feet. So here's your 1.21 gigawatts at 88 miles per hour. That's what you need. You need that power and that speed to get through the gate, to get through the hole in the wall. Then in approximately 1 minute, it began rapidly descending, roughly 17,000 feet in just 1 minute. As always, the footage is foggy photo footage. Of course, they don't want you to see anything specific. They just want you to see the chaos, the burning, the plane parts, because that's all there is to see. And if you actually saw 4K vivid detail, you'd be able to tell what this is all about. I've seen in some places where people comment about the quality of these photos and videos, and They say that the reason that there's such low resolution is because these news outlets take them off social media or something, and they've been shared multiple times, and every time they're shared they reduce in quality because they get downloaded and compressed and then re-uploaded and everything. But I disagree. If you are a journalist, your job should be to source it from the original person, because you have to get their permission. You can't just rip it off the internet. You have to get their permission because they hold the copyright. If the journalists have contacted the person who shot the original footage and they get the foggy photo, why are they getting foggy photos? Well, because it's deliberate. If you're getting it from the source, it should be proper resolution.
Porra! Cuidado de explodir, meu, cuidado.
So this footage was taken right after the plane crashed. These people are just casually walking past. They're not scared. They're not freaked out. They're not trying to find any bodies. They're not trying to save anybody. They're not looking to see if anybody needs help. Why? It just happened. This should be a clue as to the nature of what this is. All right, so there were 8 doctors on board, but 7 decided to change the flight at the last minute. There were going to be 15, but there were only 8. I don't think there were any doctors on board. I think they're just spinning a yarn. This sounds very similar to the holistic doctors that mysteriously disappeared a little while ago, and that to me was a load of bunk. It was all fake. All of those people, they came from that website. This person does not exist.com. So they said these doctors were going to an oncology conference. There are doctors for cancer. I have been working on a video about the Cancer Capricorn connection, which is connected to Southport, which is also why this story is happening in Brazil in the south, and they didn't make it. So again, stuck at the ego.